What's going on, gamers? It's Snitch here. Today I'm bringing you another Wild Rift patch notes review. We've got 2.2c coming out, the last patch of the 2.2 cycle. Hoping for those Eve nerfs, maybe another Katarina smack. I've already read on Twitter that they're not actually looking at making any changes yet on Kha'Zix or Rengar because they don't have enough data. So probably hoping more for those fatty Eve nerfs that we've all been dreaming of, and just generally seeing what other twists and surprises Riot Games have in store. As usual, we're breaking down the notes for you, telling you how this will affect the meta, what you can expect from the next couple of weeks, before hopefully the big patch at 2.3 at the start of June. So let's just get straight into it. Here we are, Wild Rift's patch notes 2.2c. The last balance patch of the 2.2 cycle is here. Renekton, Blood Moon skins, nerf to Evelyn, and a brand new Nemesis Duel. Welcome to 2.2c. Another Nemesis Duel already, that's pretty cool. Big fan of the current Nemesis Duel. I've actually only had it once on the 2.2b cycle, but it's pretty fun. We did not win. With Rengar and Kha'Zix still in the middle of their rivalry, a new competition emerges from the sun-soaked sands of Shurima. God, that's beautiful alliteration. Renekton will be available later in the patch to face off against his brother, Nemesis, and the ancient rituals of Blood Moon will make their debut in Wild Rift a little later. We also got some targeted nerfs to some of the strongest solo queue superstars. The hashtag Evelyn is over party starts now. Besties. So true, bestie. Big fan. This is the last balance patch of the cycle, so we'll be running these changes for an extra week or so. Look out on the dev diary later this month for what's hitting in June and July. Cool, exciting stuff. So we definitely get hyped about that dev diary coming. New champion, Renekton, the Butcher of the Sands. Very infamous top laner in PC. Primarily a Baron laner for most of his existence, but he's definitely had some spurs in the mid lane. I think he definitely could be more of a mid laner in this game because he benefits a lot from a shorter lane, I think, because kind of fits his trading pattern. Lots of tankiness, lots of sustain. Very strong early game, very powerful early game trader. If you're not familiar with Renekton, he's pretty much the most feared early game laner there is. I think the only thing about Renekton is that we're currently playing on like the season 10 and earlier items, right? In season 11, he has a lot more itemization options on PC that make him a lot more effective in mid late game. The initial set of items that we're playing with in Wild Rift, they're not as impactful for Renekton. They kind of inhibit his scaling a bit. I'm expecting his build to look something like Blade of the Ruined King, Black Cleaver, you know, maybe tank items after that. And I definitely think he'll have a pretty strong fall off within Wild Rift. But then again, you know, there's champs like Lee Sin that should fall off. They kind of just get away with it as the game goes on. So he might be more relevant throughout the whole game. I guess we'll have to see what his numbers look like and how his scaling works when he does finally hit the Rift. New skins, Scorched Earth Renekton, pretty good one. Blood Moon line is coming. Diana, Jhin, Kennen, TF, Yasuo. TF and Yasuo getting another skin each because they just don't have any right now. Even Kennen has a lot of skins, I think, so I guess we'll see where all the players' money is going, you know? Yasuo is like lining his pockets with all his skins. Infernal Nasus, this is the famous Snoop Dogg Nasus skin. Hope they get the dance in there. Otherwise, you know, bit of a disappointment. And Mecha Malphite, it's a really cool Malphite skin. His ultimate looks really cool. This skin has a really cool effect. He's kind of just a big robot, so that's a pretty neat one. New accessories. We've got the Pride line coming. This is really cool. My favorite thing is the Rainbow Trail. I don't know if they're going to expand on this more, but basically it's like whenever you come out of base with home guards, you leave a rainbow trail behind you, which looks pretty cool. I'd love to see more options for that as well. I already like about Wild Rift, they have so many cool customization options like recalls and stuff like that aren't available in PC. So I'm glad to see they're already expanding on that with stuff like being able to run out of the base with the trail and stuff. I'd love to see it further pushed on with other options. But I think there was a thing in PC League for a little bit, the rainbow trail, but I think they removed it when the event was over. And I guess we don't have a dedicated category Wild Rift yet, so maybe the same thing will happen here. But I think it's really cool, so. New event Pride. There's a Pride event coming on May 24th. I imagine that's how you get some of these drops. Nemesis Duel. Nasus Renekton enter Wild Rift's second Nemesis Duel. As a reminder, these can trigger when both champs are at or above level 13. Neither champ is taking damage within 5 seconds. Both champs are alive, but they're at least 16 units apart. The rewards for this one: if Nasus wins, his siphoning strike strikes all enemies in an area. That sounds thrilling. If he's super late game and his Q is turbo stack, that'll be fun. If Renekton wins, he will remain at maximum fury during ult dominus. This is actually really strong. If you know how Renekton works, basically all of his abilities function on a fury system. If he's over 50 fury, his abilities have extra effects. They're generally larger, they stun for longer, they do more damage, they shred armor. Like, him being a max fury all the time is pretty crazy. To be honest, don't see this happening too much because I don't think Nasus is anywhere near as relevant as Renekton in the meta, but maybe we'll see it once or twice. I guess these Nemesis Duel events don't seem to actually be ending, so they'll kind of be in the game for the whole time, so that's kind of alright. Champion changes. Braum is too good at locking people down despite his specific identity as a champion who counters powerful projectiles. Concussive blows stun duration going down. I have a great anecdote here. We were playing scrims about a week ago. Take note that, you know, my team has been playing Wild Rift for probably about 6 months now, if not longer. Leon playing Baron lane, believe he's on Fiora, gets ganked with enemy support, playing Braum, and then he gets stunned by the passive, dies, and then he freaks out. He's like, what the hell? He didn't hit his Q on me. How did he stun me? And then we had to explain to Leon after playing for 6 months that Braum's passive actually applies on his auto attacks. And now since then he believes that Braum is the most broken champion in the game. So I'm sure he'll be thrilled about this nerf, that Braum's passive is getting nerfed, because now when he gets punched and he gets stunned, I think the best part about that story is that he like never complained about Braum prior to this event, and then post this event, he's just constantly complaining about Braum's passive. Like it's just like the most broken thing ever, and it didn't change. It's just his perception of it changed. There you go. Now Leon thinks Braum is completely correct. Diana's attack speed on Moonsilver Blade is scaling excessively as she snowballs. A little bit of a late game nerf to her Moonsilver Blade. Overall, not very substantial. I think might make it feel a little bit worse, but honestly, I think with the Lich Bane build, just don't be totally cracked. Definitely a top 2 mid. Going into 2.2C, wouldn't expect much to change about Diana with this. Probably just makes her a little bit weaker in those extended skirmishes, but not too crazy, I think. Evelyn! Oh, don't hate the player, hate the hate spike. Evelyn's too strong of rules, reducing her probably damage tool, and that's 5 damage nerf. It's happening again. It's happening again! It's happening again! Alright, to be fair, this is a little bit more severe than the Katarina -10 that we've all come to know. -5 on hate spike is -10 on hate spike technically, because she uses 2 charges every single time she hits it. And then technically she hits you with 4, so it's -20. This is gonna add up. You know, it's not like it's nothing. It's basically -10 per hate spike charge. Over an extended fight, let's say she hits 10 hate spikes, she's doing 100 less damage. It is a bit more than Katarina. It's also a little bit of a nerf to her early game clearing, obviously, because she's quite reliant on base damage for that. Do I think it will kill Evelyn? I think probably not. But then again, I think Katarina's fine post-nerf, and she seems to have largely disappeared from the high elo meta for some bizarre reason. Everyone seems to be stopped playing her. Maybe it's just the meta shifted. Not more Diana, stuff like that, making Katarina more unplayable. But maybe we could just hope for a meta shift that makes Evelyn a little bit worse. I already think Rengar being in the game is pretty good. He's like a pretty consistent answer to her, revealing her with his ultimate stuff. It's definitely a nice nerf to her early game clear. I do think she's clearing a little bit too fast. So maybe, you know, even just making her clear 10 seconds slower with this kind of change, which is where it could be pretty substantial, will actually make a pretty big difference, I think. It will let a lot of junglers stay ahead of her in tempo and maybe control her more in the early game, which is a bit weaker prior to 5. Not a massive change. We'll just see how it affects. There's a lot of potential like catalytic snowball effects from this change that will actually be the nerf to Evelyn, but I guess when you just look at it, it doesn't look that big, like that big. Fizz is drowning its early game poke mages in mid. We're throwing him a life ring for his initial mana issues. Fizz is not S tier. Jax's late game is feeling overly nerfed, especially when he doesn't have access to blue buff. Why would he? He's not a mid laner. Giving him some mana as he grows should help allow him to scale into persistent threat in longer games. Also, yeah, mana per level per Jax. I always feel like these changes are really weird. I don't know how we keep ending up in this position where, like, mana as a system in Wild Rift is very, like, impaired, I guess, compared to PC, where it's nowhere near as big a deal or something to focus on for a large majority of champions. So it's always weird to me when a champion is deemed weak and their response to that is to buff their mana. It happened to, like, Tristana a while ago. It's just like they take a weak champion and they're like, hey, let's give him some mana. Obviously, Jax lost the mana from Sheen a while ago. If you're still going Trinity Force build, sometimes they go AP build nowadays, but he's missing a little bit of mana from that period. I don't know. I mean, I don't actually think Jax is that bad right now, but Fizz, I just don't know how we look at Fizz. I guess it's a little bit scary to buff Fizz because if he runs out of control in the meta, it's pretty annoying. It's a bit of a disappointing change to see. I don't know. It just kind of reminds me of like that Tristana cycle where she got buffed again, and it was just like, but why are you buffing mana? It's like not even relevant for the game, really. It's not gonna make the champion feel better. She's not inhibited by mana. She's inhibited by being weak, and I think Fizz is the same way, where he just kind of sucks, and it's not like giving him more mana is gonna particularly change that. Kai'Sa's probably 2-0 in high skill play. We are nerfing her wave clearing ability and reducing her playmaking potential in the early game to keep her in check. Kathy and Rain, bonus damage and minions below 35% HP. I didn't even know this did this, to be honest. This is actually just brand new information to me, but okay. And then Killer Instinct cooldown increased by 20 seconds at rank 1 and 10 seconds at rank 2. Pretty substantial ult change actually. I think her ult was quite a short cooldown. This will feel pretty good in terms of counterplay. I don't actually know when this will be relevant because I think if you're using a Kathy and Rain on a minion below 35% HP, you're probably going to kill it regardless of having any bonus damage. So I'm not sure what this will really change. I think mostly the ult cooldown will be a bigger impact overall. But hey, nice to see them actually hitting Kai'Sa a bit because she has been pretty substantial in the meta for a while. But I do think she's weaker than Ezreal right now and has been for like 2+ weeks. So I don't really know why we're hitting Kai'Sa over Ezreal. I don't know. I think Ezreal benefited a lot from the Manamune changes and that kind of thing. And since then, he's been pretty outrageous in terms of a pick. But, you know, I don't think he's like insanely strong, I guess, in comparison to Kai'Sa. But it just seems weird to me that Kai'Sa gets hit specifically as opposed to like hitting Ezreal as well. Lee Sin. Lee Sin is slightly overperforming at higher skill levels, so adjusting the power you get, optimizing his passive well, minus 10%. I mean, kind of in the similar vein to the Evelyn change. You could argue it's a catalytic change. This will slow down his jungle clear a bit. This will weaken his dueling a little bit. It doesn't look like much. It may mean more than it supposedly looks like. That's what I'll say about it. I don't think it's a huge change. Overall, at the very least, it will make Lee a little bit weaker. He already kind of struggles in terms of keeping up with clear speed in general, but it could be substantial. It's just tough to say. I don't, like, reading it doesn't seem like much. I think I would have preferred to see, like, maybe some of his damage hit or something, but maybe it's just making him a bit too slow in terms of clear in that regard. So definitely slow down his clear a little bit, and then maybe weaken his early, like, crab fights and stuff like that. But I think as he scales into the mid-late game, his passive becomes a lot less relevant in terms of the attack speed bonus, just because he's relying more on his one-shot combo in most team fights. You know, both Lee and Eve getting potentially a clear hit and a hit in terms of some of the damage output, and then I guess with Kha'Zix and Rengar still being experimented with, we might see a shift in the jungle meta going through this patch. Lulu! While other enchanted supports are performing well, Lulu has fallen behind. We are reverting some of the recent nerfs to her base sets to help her and picks out, giving her back some base mana and move speed buff. Move speed buff's pretty good. Can't go wrong with that, especially because Lulu has no escape. Quite reliant on positioning now with the shorter range on her shield. Overall, just some nice small changes to help Lulu feel a little bit better. I think she's still been pretty fine, honestly. I think she's a little bit underplayed. She hasn't been too bad since the nerf. I think, yeah, definitely fell out a lot harder than she needed to. Definitely can still be a solid pick, and maybe this will make people will encourage her a little bit more again. Lux! We want to encourage champs in multiple lanes, but support Lux is a bit strong. To address that, we're adjusting her shield strength. Prismatic barrier, shield amount of return lowered, and then the shield AP ratio return lowered as well. So this is kind of weird. I guess this means, I don't know what the actual numbers are myself between the outgoing shield and the coming back shield, but a 55 nerf at rank 4 is nothing to sneeze at. That's pretty massive in terms of how much, you know, she lost. She's definitely been a really strong enchanting support, especially in pro play for a while now. The shield is very substantial. I'm not sure if this will kill her, because I still think the shield is very strong, but it does look like a big number change. So we definitely could see a loss from Lux, or, you know, definitely a reduction in her place in the meta. I think something to consider is, you know, these numbers are actually really big when you think about the fact that it can hit 5 people if they're all stood in the line, and that's where a lot of the drastic value of her as a champion comes from. Even though these numbers are not that big, you have to always consider them in terms of the entire team. So she might still be good, just not as crazy. We'll just have to see how the numbers feel post-change. Pantheon! Despite his recent bust, Pantheon is still struggling to make an impact. We're giving him a little nudge to find his legs. A little bit of armor per level, and a little bit of base damage to his second ability. Whoa, wait, I said a little bit because I read 65 to 70, and then I read 140 to 220. That's 80 damage on his second ability. I mean, you're maxing it last, I guess, so it's not that huge, really. I guess maybe it seemed bigger in my head than I thought it was. Maybe you will max it second now, in that case, just for more base damage. I guess it is a realistic world where you would max shield second if it does a lot more damage, but probably still maxing third skill second most of the time, just to keep the cooldown down. So realistically, we're only looking at the armor per level change here, which won't be that substantial. Maybe it could be relevant for jungle Pantheon, getting a little bit higher base armor in the jungle, making him a little bit healthier. I mean, it's not bad to have a little bit higher base stats, but overall, don't think these changes will actually change that much. Because, yeah, I think every Pantheon is maxing E second, or, you know, third skill second. I don't think anybody's maxing second skill from any role, but maybe this will encourage you to try it. I mean, 80 base damage is not nothing, for sure. It's a pretty substantial buff to later levels, but I just don't know if it outweighs having the cooldown from you know, your third skill a lot lower. So while this looks cool, might not actually be that relevant, maybe just a little bit more late game burst. Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate is struggling. His red card in particular is not matching up to the rest of his deck. Pick a card. Radius increased and slow increased. So this is actually a pretty substantial buff to Twisted Fate's laning. Twisted Fate's general trading pattern, if he can't just hit the enemy for free, relies around using his red card to throw it on a minion, and then the radius expands around the minion and pokes the enemy later. It would be really good for his lane base for sure. This will make him a lot relevant. Honestly, I've been playing a lot of TF lately, or more TF again lately, and I think he's not that bad right now. So this could actually push him into like more of a staple pick in the meta, just making his laning a little bit stronger. Because his lane honestly isn't that bad. It's just this part of what his kit entails on PC is basically missing. This will make his ability to poke and lane a lot stronger. And he actually does have quite respectable all-in damage with Electrocute and his gold card and stuff like that. And obviously really great gang setups. So not too bad at all in terms of affecting how he'll be, I think. I think this might push him into becoming more of a meta staple actually, even though it doesn't look like that much of a change. Game system changes. Passive goal. We're seeing players finish their builds too quickly, leading to less satisfying power progression and longer games. Additionally, we feel roaming as a team while ahead comes to too little of a cost, which makes split push weaker than we like. With taking a small stab at solving these problems by lowering passive gold gain in the mid to late game. We'll be closely monitoring the net effect of this change. It's pretty experimental. So after 8 minutes, instead of getting 4 gold per second, you get 3 gold per second. This is a really interesting change. I kind of agree that it's hard to judge the net effect of what it will do. It's a very interesting change. I would like to see the game push in a direction where, yeah, like post lane phase, side laning is more relevant and you can't just kind of ARAM as often. Especially in solo queue, it's very, even in high elo, it's very standard. Everybody just starts ARAMing and fighting for nothing all the time because they don't know what they don't know how to control side waves. So it'd be nice to see players that can manage side waves getting more value because everyone else is kind of just losing gold by just flailing around the map. But overall, I think it's hard to make a judge of this. There's definitely different effects it could have. It could make games longer because it takes people longer to get items. It could make games shorter because the team that's ahead has an item advantage for a longer amount of time. If you know what I mean? Like it's harder for the team that's behind to get the gold to catch up in items, so they could just never fight and they lose a lot faster. Yeah, definitely hard to judge exactly how this will affect the game. I think it's a really interesting experimental change. I do think the game is a bit ARAM-y right now. Everyone's kind of stacking a lot, and I think it's nice that they're trying to make changes to make the game a little bit more strategic and macro focused. Overall, I think that's always a good shout. So I like to see even just they're experimenting with things like this. I think it's a cool little change, and we'll see how it affects the game throughout this patch. And that is it. Thank you guys very much for tuning in on this patch review. I think overall, pretty interesting patch. No hits to things like Akali, Fiora. That's a bit of a shame. Would have liked to see a bit more changes to some bigger champions that have been dominating the meta for a while. But overall, you know, we hit Evelynn, we hit Lisa. It's not like nothing got changed. We'll see how those changes work out. I think they're a little bit on the small side, but like I've said, you know, they could be a bit catalytic and they could have a larger impact on those champions as a whole. I think the biggest nerfs from this patch are probably Lux and maybe Evelynn, and then the biggest winners are probably TF. I think, honestly, I think TF might actually benefit a lot from this change, even though it looks quite small. Excited to see how that passive gold change works out, and with regards to, you know, how it affects the meta, how it affects the mid lane game. But yeah, once again, thank you guys very much for checking out this patch review. Feel free to check out the rest of my channel for some more Wild Rift and other assorted content, and I hope to catch you guys in the next video. Bye!